Welcome. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for our first live application demonstration webinar. We're excited to use this opportunity to do a bit of testing and learning so that hopefully we can provide more resources like these webinars moving forward. So as you can kind of see from the screen, my name is Jackie Boychuk. I am a marketing specialist with the Canadian Kennel Club. We also have a few more CKC staff on the webinar with us today. So Stuart Anderson is here from our Membership Services Department.
Hi.
And he will be our main guy who's going to guide us through all of the online applications. After we do all the introductions, Stuart's screen will be on screen share for most of the webinar. So we'll be able to hear him, and then we'll also be able to see his screen in live time as he fills out the applications. We also have Emily McKinnon, manager of the Marketing and Communications Department here. We have Andrew McAllister, our e-business manager, and Lance Novak, obviously CKC's executive director. The last three people are going to be taking more of a backseat role, but they're here to assist us if we have any heavy hitter questions, specific situations that come up. And then obviously they're also here at the end if you have any questions related to today's webinar. So, like I said, Stuart's going to be doing most of the talking, and he's going to walk us through two scenarios. First, we're going to go through a litter registration where both the dam and sire are from Canada, and then we're going to do a Canadian-born dog registration where the dog will be living with its new owner on a co-ownership with full registration. So both are fairly straightforward registrations, and we wanted to do something kind of simple first off so that we can show the most common scenarios for dog and litter registrations. That being said, there are multiple different types of dog and litter registrations you can submit online, including litters with foreign-born sires, multiple sires, using artificial insemination. For the dog registrations, you can also do NCNs, ERN, PENs, all the acronyms and more. And you can also do imported and foreign-born dogs. But today, we're just going to kind of keep it to the basics. I think we're just getting Stuart's screen rolling, and then we are going to start.
Okay, so you should see a login screen now, and I'm just going to log in with the information that I have. Okay, so that brings you to the dashboard, and we're going to start doing a litter application. So we're going to go to Applications. And you see we have 4 different forms that you can do online. So we're going to select litter registration rather. And almost all applications will have some kind of information at the top or a blue box. It's important that you read through this just so that you're familiar with anything that you might require as you do the application or just after. Some applications require an upload, as it's talking about here with required documentation. And it's important that you have that available, whether it's a paper copy, but even better is to have a scanned copy on your computer to upload at the end. And there are various scenarios where you may require to upload something. So just read through this and you'll know whether or not you need to have certain documents available. Moving on, we go to the dam's information. A little bit of information here about the dam, and I'm just going to go ahead and put the number in here that I have for the dam. It is a drop down, so it shows you all of the potential dams that you could have, the potential dogs for this field. And as you start typing, it will narrow down your selection. Virginia. And then it will bring up a little gray box with some information about the dog to verify. Okay, and then it's you're just kind of answering some of the questions here. Was the dam imported in whelp? In this case, no. Then we move on to the sire information. Again, a little bit of information to read about it. And then we start answering the questions. So in this case, we have 1 sire. And then, was this litter produced as a result of artificial insemination? So in our case, no, but if I just click yes for a second, you'll notice it comes up with another question. And there's some information here about artificial insemination. This will require an upload, so there are some documents that you have to have ready. But in our case, it's no, so it leaves that, takes away that other question. Moving on, is the Psi registered with the CKC? The answer is yes, and it brings up another field. This one you have to type in. Now, all of our new dogs with the new system, they come up, they will display like with a CK or some other 2 letters and a dash in front. And I'm just going to show you what happens when we do that. So if I hit tab from there to move away, you'll notice that it comes up with a red error saying that there's some kind of problem. And the reason for that is these three characters at the front. So if I remove these three and click away or tab, it then brings up the sire's information. So we have the name, the number, the breed, and the date of birth of the dog. Okay, so moving on, then we have the date of mating and date of birth. There are a couple of ways to put the date in. So one is there's this little calendar widget, and if you click at the top, you can go back to selecting the year. So in our case, it's 2020. Oh, my mistake, sorry, it's 2019 actually. And then it's in August, and it's on August 10th. You could also type it in. So for the date of birth, it's October 12th. And format's important, so you have to make sure that it's the year with 4 digits, the little the hyphen. You can forego the preceding zeros if it's 8 or something. So up here, if I had typed in that and I tab away, it automatically adds those. But the dashes are important, and you have to make sure you put the correct numbers in. Okay, and you may have noticed that when I moved away from the birth date, the litter owners populated. So now we have an owner here. So that is our owner at birth. You can verify that information. And then we're going to go to the contact type. So most people will select number 2. And number 2 is important because it means that you were the owner at the date of birth. The first one means that you were only the owner at the date of mating. So even if you were the owner at the date of mating and at birth, you want to make sure that you select the second one. It's important that you select that. It allows you to do more with the litter afterwards if you're registering the dogs. Okay, so as long as this information is correct, you can say all owners are listed. If there's any issue with that and if anything's missing, then you can send us some information and we can fix that for you. And then the number of males and females. So we have 4 males and 3 females. And is this a recessive coat? The answer is no. And then one of your last questions is the declaration. So this is just stating that you understand, that you've read through everything, that you understand all the information is true and whatnot. And then lastly, what language, and ours is going to be in English. So at this point you could hit submit, but I'd recommend before hitting submit that you go back and check your answers, because once you hit submit, that's it. Your answers are in, they're locked in, you can't change anything. So you want to make sure that you review the information now before you hit submit. So if we're happy with everything, we're going to move forward with submit application. And then we come to this screen, and this screen will pop up for just about every application. And you want to make sure you hit continue. If you don't hit continue, then it will not go to the next stage for the application. It will remain at this initiated stage, and it will hang there. And while you can go back and fix that later, we may not know that it's hanging there. So you want to make sure you click continue. So you get to the screen, and then you can pay and check out. So this is just one order. Normally, if you had other orders, there would be others listed on that previous page for you to pay at the same time. So on the payment screen, you have the choice. It's a drop down for the card type. You put your name in. I think it's pretty standard for most online payment that this information's there. The month is the drop down. I hit D, and it automatically goes to December. Same thing with the year. If I just start typing it, it just kind of comes up, but you can have it drop down as well. And then that should be it. Oops, this is required this time. I think that should work. And that's it. So your litter is ready to go, and right away you could go in and start registering the dogs from that litter.
If anybody has any questions about what Stuart just did for the litter application, I know it's pretty straightforward, but if anybody wants to, we can take a couple seconds right now, answer any that people want to put in the Q&A.
I have one. It's Andrew. So in the Q&A, someone's asking a question about e-transfer, and that it would be helpful to have a comment on the screen regarding e-payment, mentioning that CKC transfer address. So for that one, yeah. So when Stuart said, if you get to that screen and you don't pay, it goes into that initiated status. You would stop there and then contact us to do the e-transfer process. But we can definitely look into at least adding a message on that screen to tell you what to do if you want to do an e-transfer. Why is there no identification on the order as to what is being processed, dog name, litter number, etc.? I've run into this before when individually registering puppies when I have no idea what I'm paying for. That's a really good question. So under My Orders, there's My Orders beta that has that information, but we're actually going through an exercise with a company that's helping us improve those screens. If people are interested, I can share my screen that shows what a potential new screen will look like. Everyone should see my screen now.
Yep.
So this, let me get rid of the chat window. This is sort of a wireframe, so it's not how, it doesn't have the logo and the colors and all that stuff, but it shows the organization of information. So this is, I think, one of the big complaints we do get is you have no idea what you're paying for. So going forward, we're going to drop the order number. We need it in the back end for us to know, but it's just another number that members have to remember and look at. So we're going to stick with the application number. It'll show the date, what type of order, and it'll show either the dog's name, or in the case of a litter, it'll show also the dam's name. And it will clearly say, which applications are in draft status, which ones are pending approval. So pending approval could either mean another member has to consent or CKC has to approve it, and it will show all the ones that you paid. But it'll have the breakdown of the information that you actually need.
Awesome. Thanks for showing that, Andrew. I mean, we are excited internally as well to have some of these changes start coming through. Leslie has the same question again about why is there a CK dash on the registration number if not needed? As Andrew said, we agree, and we have that in the works to see if it could possibly be removed and what have you moving forward. I think we'll move on to the dog registration now. If you're ready to go, Stuart.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So from the screen, everything's completed. I'm going to go ahead and go straight to applications, the applications page, because we're going to start doing a dog. So we go down to dog registration here, online. Okay, so once again, we have a blue square, which is important to read. Again, what you need to know before you start. So these are good things to have ready before you begin doing the application. I mentioned the required documents before. There are definitely some documents with dog registrations that need to be uploaded. If you leave the upload screen before you upload something, again, it will leave it at that initiated stage, which can be fixed and you can still finish the application later, but it's just a lot easier if you have the documents ready to go, so then you can get it into the next stage and move the application along. So our dog is born in Canada, and we are going to register Canadian-born dog, CKC recognized. Again, a little information about required documentation that I've talked about before. In our case, our dog does not have a TCN number, a temporary competition number. And most people are probably going to register the entire litter. If you look at our fee schedule, you'll notice that we do have a discount for dogs that are registered within 120 days of their date of birth. They get a 10% discount if you're registering all the dogs. You have to make sure you answer this question for each individual dog that you're registering. Otherwise, you won't get the discount because it's applied individually to each dog, not on the whole. Okay, so then we're going to select the litter. Again, it's a drop down, but you could also start typing it. If you have a lot of litters, it might be useful to know the number, then you can just start typing it and it will pop up for you. So in this case, it's this one. And you'll notice that a gray box appeared with some information about the litter, breed, and date of birth, number of males and females, sire and dam, and owner at birth. Verify this information to make sure it's correct. If anything is missing, you can contact us. Okay, we move on to the dog name. Now I'm going to just demonstrate something really quick. So if I put in, and then I hit tab or click away, you'll get a message here. It's a yellow error, so technically you can move on from this, but the reason for this is because Adonis is a kennel name that is not owned by the person doing the application. So if that's the case, then it'll ask you, you can see down here, if you have permission to use it. If you have permission, you hit yes, and an email will get sent to the owner of the kennel name to verify, just like you would on an application form when they'd sign off on it. It's the same thing here. If you select no, you'll notice you get a red error message, and this will prevent you from completing the application. Okay, so there's also a little bit of information here about the dog name. If you have any issues, this could be helpful to help explain why the dog name is not being accepted. So I'm just going to change this. And then I'm going to hit tab. And it brings me to the dog color. So this is a list of the breed standards. So these are the ones that are most commonly used with our particular breed. Just select red and white. And then the gender, I'm going to say male. Our dog is not spayed or neutered. If you do hit yes, it will just ask for the date, and that's fine. That's all you need for that. And then we get on to identification. So does your dog have a microchip? Yes. And in our case, our microchip was purchased from CKC, so I'm going to hit yes. And then you get a drop down. So here's a list of all their microchips that this particular person owns. Now, if I'm just going to quickly copy this. If I had said no, and I put this number in, and I hit tab, you'll get a red error message saying that this is already in use. And that's because it's in our system. It's not active yet, as in we don't have anything in our records that say it's in a dog, but we have the microchip on record. So somebody owns this microchip, or it's being used on a different dog or something along those lines. So you just have to pay attention to where the microchips are and whether or not they are yours. Only one person can own a microchip. So again, it's yes, and there's our number.
That's something, I'll jump in here real quick, Stuart, because that is a question that we get a lot at the office. Normally when people run into issues at this part, it's because one of their, a partner or a breeding partner or someone has purchased the microchip, and they're now trying to use it on their dog. And as Stuart said, only one person can own a microchip from the CKC. So if I was breeding with my husband and he purchased the microchips, but I am online entering on all the information, that microchip number would not show up in my drop-down box because I don't technically own that microchip. So if that happens to you and your microchip isn't showing up, you would have to contact us at the CKC, and then we can then take that microchip number and associate it with you.
Yeah, and then it will appear in your drop-down and you'll be good to go. Okay, so we have our implant date. Again, you can either use the widget on the side here. So in this case, we are looking for, we're in 2020, March 15th. Okay, and the other option is you could have a tattoo. So we went with the microchip, so I'll just go over that, skip that for now. Lost dog recovery, these three questions, they're not mandatory, but they are useful, and we recommend you fill them in. I'm just going to move on. And then certificate, the language will be in English. We are not going to order a pedigree, but if you could order one if you wanted, and again, it's additional cost. If you hit yes, you have the option of a 3 or 4 generation pedigree. No. And transfer of ownership. So our dog is going to be transferred. So as soon as you hit yes to this question, you will be charged a transfer fee. So the fee will already be applied. And our date for the transfer is April 25th. And that's the same date. Oops. And our dog is going to be sold for breeding or exhibiting purposes. And new owner information. So in this case, this dog is going to be co-owned by the owner at birth, as well as the new owner, with the dog living with the new owner. So we're going to put the new owner in as owner 1. And we do not have a CKC membership or contact number for them. So we're going to enter their information. The contact type, there's only the option for owner. And their first name, Alan. Their last name is Schultz. And then we get to the address. So the address is a search. As soon as you start typing, you'll notice that different addresses start popping up. And this is the one we're looking for here, Tabo River. And if I scroll down, you'll see that this information has been automatically populated. If you don't find the address when you're searching for it, or if you find something similar, but it's not quite, you don't see it as being quite right, you can hit manually enter the address and you can put the information in manually. So in this case, this information is fine. Now here's a question we often get about email addresses. You'll notice that it does not have a red star, so it's not necessary. However, if that person were to ever do anything online themselves, transferring the dog or registering a litter or whatnot, to do it online, they need their own unique email address because each person involved with that dog will need to consent. To be able to do it at all, they have to be able to log in, and you need an email address for that. So that's why every individual person needs their own specific email address. If they don't care about doing anything online, then you don't have to put anything in here. So we don't have an email for this person, so I'm going to leave that blank. The phone number is required though, so put that in. And then, like I said, this dog will be co-owned. So we're done with the first owner. And the second owner is going to be the owner at birth. So in this case, we do know the contact number. There is only one option here. And then their contact number, 4084. And then I can either click over here in the white space or hit tab, and this information will populate automatically. And you can see it's all grayed out. I can't change this. Okay, so that takes care of the ownership. Those are going to be the new owners. You have to make sure that you do put in the owner at birth as another owner to transfer to. You can't just click the co-ownership question, which is next, and assume that the person is going to be on the certificate. You have to make sure that you put their information in again. Then we go down to the co-ownership question. So this is where we actually answer the question. If we click yes, it will then ask for a co-ownership form, which is, there's a link here. It's one of the uploads that you would have to put. Okay, so we're going to click yes. We already said that this dog will be used for breeding, so we don't need a non-breeding agreement. We're going to click no there. And then our certificate will be in English. And then our very last question, just like the litter, we're just confirming that this information is correct. We're 18 years of age or older, and that we agree to the process. Okay, so yes. And then once again, before we hit submit, this is when you go back through your form and make sure everything is correct. Because once again, once you hit submit, that's it. Your answers are locked in. Okay, so everything is correct from as far as we can tell. And we're going to hit submit. Okay, so we get to this screen again. Once again, you have to make sure you hit continue. You always want to hit continue. And here's our upload screen. So if we leave this screen, all your information is submitted, your answers are saved, but it will remain at initiated. And you'd have to go find it again, view it, and it will bring you to this screen again. Depending on which application you're submitting, you can see there are different options here. It will tell you, this screen will tell you what you need to upload. But when you click on them, it will drop down and it will show you the different scenarios that might require an upload. So in our case, I'm just going to upload a file that I have ready here. And I'm going to hit submit application. And now it's pending approval. So at this stage, one of our staff, they're usually pretty quick at getting to it within a day or two, and they'll look at the application, verify your answers, verify the uploaded document, and then they'll push it from pending approval to pending payment, where you can log back in and pay the fee. And that's about it.
Perfect. Stuart, we have a question that came in when you were going through the application from Nancy, and it's about the transfer date and then the date that a puppy has been microchipped. So she normally uses the transfer date as the day that she receives a deposit for the puppy, but then she runs into issues with the date that the puppy is microchipped being after she transfers the puppy. And obviously then the system kind of panics a bit.
Right. So I believe what happens is, because there's a date of transfer and date of possession, the date of identification, whether it's a tattoo or if it's a microchip, it has to be before the date of possession. It will give you a red error message if it's after. The possession date will give you a red error message. The transfer date might give you a yellow error message, and but I believe it should allow it to go through, because just as you described, if there was a deposit, if there was an agreement made before the identification, that's essentially fine. If it's, as long as the dog was identified before it leaves the breeder, before it leaves the owner at birth to the new owners.
So we had the question from Carol that came in right after we did the litter registration, and it was about the 3 different types of ownership that you can select in that drop-down menu. And she was hoping that we could explain the different types a little better.
Yeah, so the only ones that are really important are the first 2. We are working, I think, on something about removing the 3rd one. But the first 2 are important. First one's the breeder, the second one's the owner at birth. They sound the same, but it's significant for the way our system works, in that the breeder is the owner at the date of mating, and the owner at birth is, just as it says, the owner at birth. And that's because sometimes the dog might be transferred between the date of mating and the date of birth. So you still need, just as our forms indicated, you still need consent or a signature from the owner at the date of mating, even if they're not the owner at the date of birth. And they'll be listed as such in the litter record. But it's the owner at birth who can later then register the dogs. You have to make sure you're listed as the owner at birth in order to register the dogs online.
The other question was related to, I don't think we have an online mechanism to update your dog status. Now, I know when you look at your My Dog list, if the dog is deceased, it doesn't show up. But we can look into putting something online that lets you do that. Who receives the certificate of co-ownership? That might be a Stuart question, but I think the answer is whoever the owner of the dam was gets their certificates, including the pedigrees and all the things like that. We do have, for the next little while, we've been emailing the PDF versions out to the applicant, and they can send them to whoever they want. We're also mailing out the paper certificates. There's a bit of a backlog, but you will get the paper certificates as well that you can distribute.
And I think we just gave Nancy permission to talk here. If it's easier, Nancy, if you want, you should be able to unmute now and ask us the question live.
I just wanted to know, with the litter registration numbers, as you use this program, does it hold all of your litter registration numbers? So I might someday have 50 in there?
Yeah, for sure. So it keeps the litter numbers. It also keeps track of how many males and females are related to that litter. And then if you went into your My Dog area, it would also show the litter associated with each dog. So it keeps track, and in our back end, we've got all the historical information to, I don't remember the exact date, but sometime in the 1980s, when we launched the first system, all your litter information's there.
I don't think, though, it will be in the drop down, though, right, Andrew? Like, I think she's also asking, like, when she goes into the application, once she registers a litter, that won't be an option for her to register it again.
Right, so the litters will show in the drop down as long as there's an available male or female to register. So once the litter is complete, it's not in the drop down anymore.
Okay.
You would end up with a lot of numbers in that drop-down menu.
That's what I was wondering, that every time I register a litter, I might have to go through maybe 50 to find the number?
Yeah.
No, just the open ones.
Okay.
We are still doing all right for time. If anybody else has any more questions or situations that they've run into that they would like an explanation, if you've tried to do a registration online and you've had some difficulty, here's your opportunity to grill us and see what happened.
If not, I wondered if anybody needed an explanation on how to answer the TCN question, because it's a fairly new concept for this system. What's a TCN number, and how do I know if I need or have one or not?
So it used to, it's a temporary competition number. TCN allows you to compete in events, but it's not an official registration. So people sometimes do that, compete in some events, and then later on they choose to register their dog. Then we're sort of left in the predicament that there's a whole bunch of show results and perhaps even titles related to the TCN dog. And then you might have some results related to your officially registered dog. So we asked that question so that we can merge those two dogs together so that we end up with one dog record with all the event results under one dog.
We also had some questions come in from Lorraine. She sent us an email yesterday, and Stuart kind of pre-answered those for us. We can go over them now live as well, because I think a lot of people will still have these questions. The first one we answered while Stuart was doing it, about the individual email addresses and why we now require people to have separate email addresses. It allows you to consent. Then we don't have to start sending papers around like we did before. She also asked a question about if it's possible to receive one statement or invoice for all transactions. This is a question we get a lot, because unfortunately it means that some people, if you're registering 10 dogs, you're getting 10 invoices and what have you. This is something that we are looking at. It is one of our main usability fixes that we are hopefully in the future going to be able to get rolling. And then the last question is more of a technical question, and so I will read it. If I am close to the 120, 180 day cutoff, but I don't complete all transactions at the same time, and some of the applications trip over the 120, 180 days, will all applications be billed on the same day I entered the first transaction? If we are intending to register a whole litter at the same time, which is a question we have to answer with the online registration process, is there an allowance of time given to get all applications done for that litter over a period of a few days or a week? Or do they all have to be done at the same time? If transactions are based on the actual day they are completed, does this cancel the entire litter discount eligibility?
Because different dog applications can have different owners, perhaps different consents required, each dog application is treated separately. So if you had 4 applications for a dog and 2 are within a certain date range, you would get the discount that applied for those 2 dogs. And if 2 were later on, you'd get whatever discount was appropriate for the remaining 2 dogs.
And the other point I wanted to make is the 180 day threshold has been discontinued with the new fee schedule as well. That's a kind of a side point.
We also had a question just come in on the Q&A from Lorraine about the NBC, the non-breeding contracts being no longer fillable. It's not your browser. It's unfortunately probably just that it was uploaded in that fashion. I'm going to write that down in terms of the fact that because it's such a commonly used application, it should be able to be fillable online. I agree. That would be much easier. Oh, Carol, what happens if co-ownership is entered, but co-ownership form isn't uploaded? This is a good one.
So during the approval state, because it goes to approval after that. So if you manage to bypass the upload screen and it still goes to pending approval, because if you don't upload anything, it will stay at initiated, and it will stay at initiated until you upload something. It goes into your incomplete applications section on your dashboard. And So if it did manage to go to pending approval and we look at it and we see there's no form, then we're gonna contact you for a form. We're gonna need that form before we approve it.
Stuart, can you pop over real quick on the dashboard and show people where that little incompleted part would be?
Yeah. So from the home page, your dashboard, you scroll down to My Applications, and you notice incomplete app. Oh, we're popping up and down. So there's nothing here right now, but if anything was initiated, so if you didn't hit continue or you didn't hit submit at the end after submitting your answers, then it'll show up here. You'll be given two different options. You can either view it or you can delete it. So you can delete it and restart everything, or you can view it and it will take you to the next thing that has to be done. So if you have to upload something, it brings you to the upload screen. If there was some kind of glitch and it just needs to be refreshed, then it'll bring you to that next stage, whether it being approval or payment.
Lance, we had a question from Lorraine, and she's asking if you can elaborate a little bit. You mentioned that the 180-day deadline is being discontinued with the new fee schedule.
With the introduction of the system, I think it was January 1st, there was a streamlined fee schedule that was passed and implemented. And the number of tiers went from, I believe it was from 3 different tiers to 2. I believe it's 0 to 120 days and 120 days plus. So there's only 2 fee options now for the date of the application.
And the new fee schedule can be found in the bottom of our webpage. There are links in the bottom where it says schedule of fees, and that will have the new one there. And you will see that even the fee schedule itself looks a lot different than it did in previous years. You don't have those, it's not split up as much as Lance was mentioning.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Saturday.